the Mastermind Creations all-in-one groove figure. Cannot remember his name, even though I have his box on my desk right now. Incertus. Don't do that with your Tarn figure, by the way. Don't Incertus your Tarn.
Oh, you just had to bring that up.
Welcome, most esteemed viewers. This is Kid Catastrophe, the headmaster of the School of Athenia, welcoming you back for the 17th consecutive episode of the Chugcratic seminar. This time, I am joined by two of my esteemed colleagues. First, the Dean of Critique, Runestone.
Better late than never to the Skybound party.
Right you are. And just like last time we talked about this comic, I'm also joined by the Dean of Fabrication, definitely Not Char.
You know, people should really mind what they do with their figures.
I can't agree with you more. Now, how's everyone doing on this fine springtime Sunday?
I'm good. I've been good since the last podcast. I've been getting into some more big boy hobbies. I've been getting into RC stuff lately. Been refurbishing this old boat that I have, this RC boat. So that's been pretty fun.
Oh my god, Char, you're becoming not a loser.
Yeah.
Giving up your toys.
I wouldn't say that.
Okay, exchanging them for more expensive ones. How's that?
I mean, I already did that. I might go outside more often.
Might touch some grass.
Yeah. A real grass toucher hobby. Imagine.
What about you, Runestone? How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm all right.
Great. Well, let's get right on in. Starting off, let's talk about our most recent purchases. Does anyone have anything worthwhile to share with the class?
Yes, I have acquired yet more metal card bots.
Oh boy.
Yes. In my latest delivery from AliExpress, I got myself Rock Crush, who is literally neurodivergent and a minor, and I got myself Deep Bite, who is like a cross between Skybite and Hunt for the Decepticons Sea Spray.
So he's not the greatest shark around.
No, he is not the greatest shark in town, but he's a close second.
I see. Competition is pretty fierce, it looks like.
Yes.
Runestone, what about you?
There's only really one thing for me to talk about, and in all honesty, I'd rather leave it to you because I know you've got it as well. It's Studio Series Hatchet.
Oh, right. You actually got that one after I slagged it off on the extracurricular, which you just uploaded today on your own channel. Go check it out once this stream's done.
Wait, we didn't talk about Hatchet in that, did we?
Oh, I brought it up.
Oh, maybe you did. But all I'm going to say is they really, really did the dreads dirty in Studio Series because holy fuck is Hatchet obnoxious to transform.
Right. He's awful. And like I'll give him one thing. At least like, the vehicle mode looks nice, but
I mean, the main problem with Hatchet is that he is one of the few Studio Series figures that actually prioritizes vehicle mode scale, since he is just a retool of Crowbar. So the vehicle, the Chevrolet Suburban, they're all the same size, obviously, but it means that Hatchet lacks the towering stature he has over most of the other characters out there.
Yeah.
And like
I would say that was probably the right choice to make, though.
But I mean, even so, the vehicle, like to get him into vehicle mode, the legs just refuse to Well, I think it's like the front pair of legs that just refuse to tab in where they're supposed to go, and like, and even more obnoxiously, the tail parts forms.
Yeah, when there was really no reason for it to do so, I really don't get it.
Yeah, you have to store the tail underneath the vehicle mode, and it's held. It's partially held in place by a sandwiching between the downsized dreadlocks on Hatchet, and they connect very weakly.
Hmm.
I mean, like I said, the dreads are among Studio Series' worst figures. You know, I've already pointed out the problems with Hatchet. Crowbar has those obnoxious dreadlocks to deal with that trail out the back of the Chevrolet Suburban. Crankcase can go die in a fire. Let's move on.
Yeah, this particular mold peaked with its first use as the Last Night Berserker, it looks like, and even he wasn't that great to begin with.
Yeah, like for some reason, I'm sure you've picked up on this as well. There are panels attached to a set of limbs that just come off way too easy.
Yes, that's what I was bitching about in the extracurricular. Um, it, it's so frustrating to transform. I was really pissed off the first time I transformed him. Um, yeah, yeah. Botshot seems to have even worse luck than us. He says mine came missing a paint app. There's a panel in SUV mode that's supposed to have black paint that doesn't. I'm so sorry. That sucks.
The only saving grace to Hatchet, and I'll say even the Dreads as a whole, they're not as bad as Satellite Soundwave.
That is a tough one. That is a tough one for me to agree with, and I don't think I can because at least Satellite Soundwave doesn't feel like crap in your hands. Hatchet feels like crap. Soundwave is crap, but it doesn't feel like crap. Anyway, as for me, I got that Legacy United 4-pack from Target. Gonna sell off the Tarantulas, probably gonna sell off the Tarn. It may have a couple stains on it. Who can guess? But the only figure I really want to talk about from that 4-pack is Squeeze Play. I haven't really he's not good by any stretch of the imagination, but I haven't really been able to put him down since I got him. He's just a really fun figure to just fiddle around with, and he's very stylish, or at least he would be were it not for the pre-yellowed plastic and matching paint apps. He's just a little weirdo in late G1 Decepticon colors, and I like him for that.
Yeah. I this isn't a recent purchase, real quick, but it is a recent failed purchase, a purchase that I was not able to make. I went all the way down to my local Smith's Toys, which is about an hour away right now, because I thought they had Magmatron, the Commander Class Magmatron, for like 60 quid, and it was entirely sold out.
Damn.
Yeah.
I bet you looked real foolish walking out of there empty-handed.
Yeah, I even asked like the people in the store if they could check the top shelf, because I am that guy. Unapologetically.
Get that bag.
Exactly. I'm always kind, I'm always polite, but I will not hesitate to ask for help at a store.
All right. So we should probably get started on the main topic of today's episode. This is actually a follow-up to a previous episode. I think it was the 8th seminar we did, where we went over the first 7 issues of the then brand new Skybound Transformers ongoing comic, just simply titled Transformers. It was just me and Char back then, so this week we have a new edition in Runestone. We're very happy to discuss our thoughts and feelings on these issues with. Runestone, I know you like to go over your thoughts on the issues that you didn't get to cover the first time around.
Well, it's more of a general overview than anything. But yes, I initially passed on these, but I caved. And what can I say? I've been missing out. To clarify, it's just the ongoing Transformers series that I'm reading. Other comics like Void Rivals or anything else that is part of the Energon universe, as it's known, I've yet to check out, assuming I ever will. With the previews back in 2023, I think a lot of people were skeptical, as not only was it yet another Generation 1 continuity, mostly starring the 1984 cast, but it looked like it was going to more or less retread the Sumbo cartoon. Then the comic hit shelves, and those fears were mostly gone. I mean, to be fair, it's not like it doesn't homage past media at all.
Yeah, issue number 1 was very derivative.
Yeah, it does. It does begin with the Ark having crashed on Earth with both factions offline and later reactivated. Fortunately, they take things in a different direction. Both the characters and story are a blend of old and new. On the character side of things, you have Skybound's Optimus Prime, who is depicted as a warm, compassionate leader, which he's always been to varying degrees. But this one lets more emotion show, unlike the past few Optimi, who have mostly been portrayed as relatively stoic. Though, make no mistake, this one is not afraid to kick ass and take names when needed. Cliffjumper comes off as less hot-blooded than he did before, almost to a fault, as we'll be discussing later. Conversely, there's Carly, who is more headstrong and domineering than her G1 cartoon counterpart. She arguably has more prominence in this series than Spike, and she develops a friendship with Cliffjumper, which, as I think Kit brought up in the last Skybound episode, is akin to the Spike and Bumblebee friendship from the cartoon. But as for Spike in this series, he's still a nice guy. But in contrast to their close bond from the old series, he and his father Sparky have a somewhat strained relationship due to the death of Spike's brother, Jimmy. We also have one of the most violent, ruthless takes on Starscream to date. The list goes on. I acknowledge a lot of the cast have developed since, but this is what they open with. The first major storyline is about the revived Decepticons taking control of the Ark, with the revived Autobots trying to reclaim it, while adjusting to life on Earth with the help of their human allies. But the Decepticons have their own struggles. They're still fairly low on resources. Megatron has been out of the series for a fair bit, and consequently, they've had to deal with the psychotic Starscream's inept leadership. But despite all that, the cons are pretty much on the winning side of the war. This is a series where the Autobots have to earn or take whatever victories they can, which brings us to the tone. I can't say for sure that this is the absolute darkest Transformers has ever been, but it's got to be up there. Let's just say, you know the tone is set when the big kid appeal character of the franchise is offed in the first issue. While comatose, by the way, and it doesn't get any tamer from there. This is, of course, accompanied by a gritty, sketchy art style. I know it won't be for everyone. I mean, I'm still kind of getting used to it, but I will say there is some great direction when called for. And this isn't even getting into some of the actual imagery, like the brutal action sequences, right down to limbs being torn off and used as weaponry. You can feel the impact of each moment as it happens. Transformation sequences. It's like live action mixed with G1. Plus some standout moments such as Skywarp being ripped apart and cannibalized by the cons to repair Teletran 1. And above all else, Optimus Prime replacing his missing right arm with Megatron's, fusion cannon included. The second fans laid eyes on that image, There were jokes, memes, artwork, and figure customs flooding the gates like you wouldn't believe. That's how iconic it's become in such a short space of time. So, yeah, this comic has a lot to offer, and all I can say is even if the Energon universe as a whole gets progressively harder to keep up with, I implore you to check out this series at least. It's definitely worth it.
Runestone, so how I'm keeping up with each issue as they come out. For the benefit of our audience, how far along have you read in this series? Is it just the paperbacks, or?
Well, I am collecting the paperbacks that group the issues together in sixes, and I have the first two. So I'm basically up to issue 12.
Okay. For everyone in the audience, that's as far as we're going today. Last time we went through issues 1 through 7, but from now on we'll be going to multiples of 6. So we're just covering 5 issues this month. And then whenever we do the 3rd edition of this, we'll go up to issue number 18, which has some pretty big events going on in that one. I won't spoil it for anyone. So, shall we get started then?
There is something else I want to say, but it will serve as a segue to issue 8 anyway. So, we've established that Starscream is unhinged, to put it lightly.
That's a good way to put it.
Among his many victims is Carly's father, who he kills with such sadism that it makes your flesh crawl. That's how the first issue ends, by the way. And like Bumblebee's death beforehand, it really shows that they're pulling no punches with this series. Carly reacts as you'd expect with the death of a parent and loved one, and develops a thirst for vengeance against the Decepticons. Also, Cliffjumper, who has formed a friendship with Carly, like I said, reveals his clan back on Cybertron was also killed by Starscream. This comes to a point in issue 6 when Cliff and Carly encounter Screamer and try to take him down. Thanks to a well-placed shot from Carly, Cliff actually has an opportunity to end Screamer for good, but can't bring himself to do it despite Carly's pleas. This moment was the source of criticism for Kit and Char back in the last Skybound episode. And while I get it, I'm more forgiving of this moment for a couple reasons. For starters, you both referenced the trope of, if you kill him, you'll be just like him. And while I'm not exactly a fan of that trope either, it debatably doesn't apply here, as Cliff doesn't really fear that he's becoming like the Decepticons or like Starscream. He's just incredibly overwhelmed from all the fighting, the killing, etc. And let's face it, if you've been at war for as long as the Transformers have, even in this universe, you'd feel the same way. More to the point, I can understand being frustrated with this moment in a vacuum, as it results in a murderous scumbag escaping their frankly well-earned fate. But then you look at the events that follow and you realize this is potentially a deconstruction of the hero has a chance to kill the villain but doesn't go through with it for whatever reason trope. This trope is used to solidify the hero's moral high ground against a villain, and normally the hero is generally praised for their decision and not much else. However, this comic arguably explores the ramifications of this trope. Right from the get-go, Starscream uses this moment of weakness and compassion to take Carly hostage, squeezing the life out of her. And when Cliff rescues Carly near the end, Carly breaks down and we get that close-up of her in tears saying, "You could have ended it all." The following issue, we see the damage it's done to their friendship, with Carly flat out refusing to talk to Cliff, venting outside the Ark via shooting practice, while Cliff watches from inside, clearly regretful of his decision. I know Jazz has the line of, "There's no shame in not pulling a trigger, even in war," but to me that's just one comrade consoling another rather than affirmation that Cliff made the right choice, especially since Cliff continues expressing his doubts anyway. Then we get to issue 8. Change sides.
Oh, sorry, that's my cue. Okay. Before we actually go on to that, I would like to say that at the time we made that episode, issue 7 was the most recent issue. And now they're up to issue number 18. So we have a lot more stuff to keep in mind as we keep going. I do have to agree with Rune on the whole deconstruction of that trope, because I can clearly see how they're trying to pull parallels with that, as we'll see throughout this episode with the introduction of both Beachcomber and Ultra Magnus and their particular philosophies and faults, respectively. So there does seem to be this does seem to be a something that they're going to be carrying through the series for a while. So for now, we'll just see how it goes.
Yeah, I just want to say I pretty much agree with everything Rune has said here. Like at the time when we were reading, me and Kit were basically under the impression that this was going to be played entirely straight, that this trope was going to be played entirely straight. Am I wrong there?
Yeah, like it definitely seemed like the story was going to be like, oh, Cliffjumper did the right thing 100%. There was no like dubiousness about it or anything. But no, as the story goes, and especially as we get into volume 3 of this work, we'll see how Cliffjumper's actions have serious consequences. Not necessarily directly, but he had his chance. He didn't take it, and well, let's hope you don't live in Seattle. Anyway, so
issue 8.
Yes, issue number 8.
Which Sorry, I just have a lot more to say.
No, please take the lead if you feel like it.
Yeah, this opens with Carly taking a wheelchair-bound Spike to a beach to cheer him up, with RC sitting nearby. They talk about how much the war has changed their lives so quickly, with Spike mourning, yet also confused by the loss of his father, as there's now no physical trace of him left. It's a pretty somber, yet also kind of heartwarming moment of reflection between the two. Then Cliffjumper enters with cans of cola, which Spike accepts, but Carly, still angry, storms off. She rants about how Cliff had the chance to stop Starscream once and for all, and brings up the death of Bumblebee, which you can tell stings for Cliffjumper, given how he looks down with his face in shadow.
Oh, yeah.
It's harsh, but at the same time, given everything we've seen Starscream do, she has a point. Carly leaves saying she's not sure she can trust Cliff again, and all Cliff can do is bury his head in his hands. Spike comforts him by patting his arm. No dialogue is exchanged between the two. All the emotion you need is right there. I, for one, feel that the comic does a fairly decent job of making Cliff sympathetic, while also addressing he kinda made a problematic choice. With that said, Carly's not exactly in the clear herself either. Spike reminds her how Cliff has saved her life multiple times, and from the look in her eyes, she knows he's right, but she's too upset to admit it. And as beyond justified and realistic as her anger is, given Starscream killed her father, there's no doubt it's clouding her judgment to an extent. For one, she talks about as though killing Starscream is such an easy thing to do, completely glossing over any consequences or after effects that could come from that decision. Whether it's direct retaliation from the other Decepticons, yes, the other cons we've seen to spy Starscream, but she didn't know that, or the emotional and psychological trauma that can come from the mere act of ending a life, regardless of whether the target, quote-unquote, deserves it. Also, while it doesn't invalidate Carly's own loss by any means, Cliff's the one that's been at war for 200 years, and in that time has likely killed countless enemies and endured far more losses even beyond his clan than Carly has in her entire life. She just hasn't been in his shoes. And on that note, her bringing up Bumblebee, while, again, accurate in the context of listing Starscream's crimes, is still tactless given Cliff wasn't even online to prevent that. Lastly, this anger results in her almost making an incredibly reckless decision, which I'm sure we'll be talking about very soon.
Yeah, I got to agree. And as we go forwards in the show, or in the comic, rather, as we go forwards in the comic, I think it does become very apparent that Carly is, she is letting her judgment be clouded by vengefulness. As much as as much as we talk about how killing Starscream was probably the right thing to do in the context, Carly is Carly's embodying that idea of the vengeance quest, and she's letting that get in the way of pretty much everything else, including self-preservation, as we will see later.
Mm-hmm. From here, then the story picks up once again with Alita 1 back on Cybertron, finding the extremely mutilated but still technically functioning carcass of Ultra Magnus. I don't know if they revealed that that's him, but everyone knows it's him at this point.
Yeah.
And I chose the name I Was Once a Man for this issue because a lot of the characters in this issue seem to be at some of the lowest points that we've ever seen them at. We see Cliff Jumper struggling with himself about his past decisions, or rather lack of decisions. Yeah, Botchus, they spoiled it was Magnus with the alt cover. Thank you. We see Ultra Magnus in just an absolutely horrendous state and literally begging for the sweet release of death at the hands of Alita 1. And she promises that if they're captured, she'll kill them both herself. Later on, we see Thundercracker having doubts sown about his loyalty to the Decepticon cause. We see Skywarp just being completely incapacitated, forced to become a tool. I think it was the Decepticons who did it, but the Autobots are just about as happy to use him as the Decepticons were. We see Skyfire, or is he Jetfire in this series? I forget.
I think he's Jetfire.
Okay, we see Jetfire basically completely disabled in an extremely poignant scene. Probably my favorite scene in this whole issue, where he's just he's blind, he's immobile, he's scared. He doesn't know what's happening. All he can do is beg Optimus not to leave him alone. And it's just a really downer issue. I think that it like, in a good way. Like this is good for the pacing of the series. It needed this moment, these moments in this issue. Especially since later on the series just gets kind of fast paced, a little too much for my liking. But it slows down pretty substantially in this one, and I quite enjoy it.
So, as I was referring to beforehand, the moment of recklessness that Carly does is she comes into the Ark with a missile launcher, fully intent on blowing up Skywarp, who, we remind you, is now a part of Teletran 1, meaning if the Seeker dies, the Autobots are out of arguably their best resource thus far. Optimus does manage to talk her down, and the shot she actually fires is an accident, which RC takes the hit for. But that doesn't change how Carly put Teletron 1 at risk to begin with.
Yeah, this is exactly what I was referring to when I was talking about her recklessness. She's not seeing sense. She wants to kill. At this point she wants to kill Decepticons for the sake of killing Decepticons, without any wider plan of what she actually wants to do. Which I think offsets well Cliffjumper's hesitation. You know, we're able to see like both ends of the spectrum, I suppose, being blinded by vengeance and being entirely stunned by it, stunned by tragedy, I suppose. Also, just to go back a scene on the aircraft carrier. I think it is. It's interesting how I think we might be seeing you know how in the IEW comics how Thundercracker became a human ally, I suppose.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it seems like they're doing the very early groundwork for that, with Skywarp sparing the ship captain, feeling pity for them as opposed to the disdain that all the other Decepticons seem to feel.
Yeah, well, we'll see a little more of that later on as well. They're definitely going down that route. But
Also,
that does go all the way back to his original tech spec, where it says he's not really sold on the Decepticons. He's not like a true believer like Soundwave is.
Also, one thing I am compelled to mention is that the aircraft carrier that we are seeing is launching F-15s, which are not carrier based. They are not. They do not have. There is no naval variant of the F-15 that I'm aware of, and I just find it a little funny because we had an F-16 in an earlier issue that was operating very far inland, and now we have F-15s launching from a naval aircraft carrier.
Someone didn't do their homework.
Yes. Very naughty. Very naughty. Yeah. It's a minor nitpick, and it doesn't affect the quality of the comic and the writing itself. It's just, I have to mention it.
Mm-hmm. As we see, the Decepticons were only attacking that aircraft carrier fleet, I guess, because they were on the way to the shipwrecked Nemesis at the bottom of the sea for very nefarious deeds. Later, we'll see what they get up to in a couple issues' time. But for now, they get interrupted by a very, very angry Astro Train who breaks free from, presumably, the brig of that ship.
Yeah,
the brig. And he seems to have it out for Megatron. And Soundwave promises Astro Train the chance to kill him. But I don't like his chances. I don't like Astro Train's chances.
Yeah. Against the big man himself, I feel like Astro Train's gonna. Well, I mean, he was put there to begin with, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah. We should probably just continue talking about the Carly arc.
Yeah.
Through this issue. After her little outburst in the arc, she hides off in her van right outside, and she has a little heart-to-heart with RC, talking about what they've all lost and stuff. Trying to bring each other a little closer together, and that seems to lift her spirits enough and make her want to be more cooperative, but also seems to, I guess, redirect her passion, if that's a better word. She wants to join the fight on the side of the Autobots. And Optimus goes, "Oh, no, it's too dangerous. You're small and squishy, Carly. You're too small and you're too squishy. You're gonna get stepped on." And so RC decides, advocates to take her under her own wing, and I think this might be a new concept for Transformers lore, but
Transformers has had similar ideas in the past with the idea of like a special bond, but this seems more like a mentor and apprentice type thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's what it is.
It's literally called an Iron Apprentice.
Yeah.
She asks to make Carly her Iron Apprentice, and she specifically says it marks the beginning of a clan, what you call family. So there's also seems to be like a quasi-parental aspect to it as well.
Yeah.
Which is a theme for going forward, because, I'll hold off a couple minutes for that, but it's on the slide.
I was going to say, I feel like this kind of plays into the idea of Carly being very rash, because she's basically agreeing on the spot to this what is apparently a very deep and very sacred bond that Cybertronians have that she doesn't even really know about. She's just taking it, from what we can see, as an opportunity to fight alongside the Autobots and to get her revenge. Now we'll see how it plays out, but to me, I feel like this is further example of it.
Though I do think it helps her case when you just ask, what does she have to lose by doing this? Besides her life.
I suppose, but one could what are the future implications of this? What is the responsibility of being an Iron Apprentice? For the rest of her life, probably, because it's it marks the beginning of a clan. That's a lifelong responsibility, effectively.
Yeah.
Or would be.
I don't know. They didn't sign anything.
It's not on paper, I suppose. But we don't know how Cybertronian law works. We don't know if they need paper. It could be entirely oral for all we know.
Yeah, well, this takes place in the United States of America, so their law doesn't apply here.
I didn't think of that. God damn.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Carly gets extradited to Cybertron. She has to pay cyber alimony.
At any rate, family seems to be a very major theme of this episode. Of this issue as well, because as when Sparky, I almost said Sparkplug, but that's not his name this time. When Sparky entered the Matrix and sacrificed himself to save Spike and everyone, it seemed to have some side effects, and we're getting the first glimpses of those as Optimus begins experiencing Sparky's memories with like himself overlaid on top of Sparky, and you get to see like memories of holding Spike, taking his first steps, and just being a father to him through Optimus's eyes.
Yes, this was what I was thinking when I saw that you had titled it "I Was Once a Man." Is this scene?
Yeah, it was. I specifically meant multiple meanings out of that. I feel like such a clever bitch for it. It's just a shame that this wasn't a G.I. Joe issue.
Yes, but it is interesting. I don't think we've ever seen something quite like this in the Transformers before. And I do wonder. Does this mean that Sparky is in there somewhere? If Sparky's soul, I suppose, has become part of Optimus Prime, or is it just that he's seeing his memories?
Yeah, Astro mentions that might be a nice profile pic, by the way. Very on topic. That might be inspired by Five Faces of Darkness, when Rodimus, on the brink of death, goes in to see the collective memories of the Primes.
That is a good point. Because if I remember correctly, Sparky did go into the Matrix, not into Optimus Prime's Spark itself.
Yes, that's correct.
So Sparky is literally one with the Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really know the mechanics of the Matrix in this setting, so we don't know if memory acquisition is part of it as standard. But it doesn't seem to be due to Optimus Prime's shock.
I think it might also be just supposed to be mystical. We're not supposed to know exactly how it works. I don't really want to know exactly how it works. But when I saw this page for the first time, my mouth was hanging open because it's such a good idea. I'm really glad that they did it. It's so creative. I was floored. This was exactly the sort of thing I was hoping to see in a Transformers comic. Just something. It's very fresh, I have to say.
No, I haven't read so far. I've only gotten to issue 13 so far on my own reading, but I am interested to see how this will affect Optimus Prime's relationship with Spike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they're definitely building building a very paternalistic attitude for Optimus Prime.
Yeah.
Like, everyone sees Optimus Prime as like, oh, he's everyone's dad, but like in this case, he literally is.
Yeah. Or at least he's becoming Spike's dad. Or at least thinks he is.
And honestly, I feel like this kind of goes all the way back to issue number 2, where Optimus was very curious about what it means to be human, living on such a fragile planet with such a fragile body. And this is literally the best way for him to experience that, through someone's actual memories.
And also, it goes back to Optimus Prime's shared experiences with Sparky. I don't remember the specific issue that they went over that, but that Optimus Prime and Sparky had this moment together. I think it was in some kind of warehouse that they were together. And I think Sparky was describing his time in the Vietnam War, and Optimus was relating that to his Cybertronian War, and how they weren't so different,
Yeah. Anyway, Runestone, it's been a while since we've heard from you. We don't want to talk over you all episode.
To be honest, I don't have much more to say about this issue, because you've covered pretty much the rest of it already. I mean, I do agree with the point on Thundercracker, because it took them a while to acknowledge his original toy bio in the first place, but IDW delivered on that one, and now it looks like Skybound is putting their own spin on it.
Yeah, I just hope that they don't retread stuff that IDW has already done,
Yeah, I would be interested to see where they take it, but I hope they don't just do it, just try and remake IDW's Thundercracker.
This time they make him a playwright.
Yeah, and now he has a cat instead of a dog.
Named Chip.
Mm-hmm.
Also, with this comic series, I have to wonder if this is the start of a trend of Astro Trains having it out for Megatron for one reason or another. Because Cyberverse Astro Train, he escaped from his own universe with his own version of Megatron, who was far more sinister than the one that we saw in the main timeline. And now we have this one who is out for blood. Or Energon, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so cutting to the chase, rounding out this issue. The Autobots leave the Ark for parts unknown, with I guess trying to find the Decepticons. Thanks to the help of Skyfire carrying them all in a big, tanker, like a freaking Combine dropship. Meanwhile, the Decepticons are busy retrofitting their old ship and contacting Cybertron. And who picks up the phone? None other than Shockwave, the big bad of this arc. So, I guess that's a wrap on issue number 8. We can move on to issue number 9, which, honest to God, has the hardest cover out of the whole series so far. Except for maybe the B cover of issue number 18. I'm very fond of that one. Very, very fond of that one. So, Rim, would you like to open this one, or?
No, you can.
Okay, well, I was hoping you would take it because I have to refresh my memory. It's been about a week since I read this one. This issue picks up pretty much exactly where the last one left off. The Autobots find the Decepticon base somehow, and massive Energon readings. Thanks, Jetfire, and just in time for the Decepticons to open up a space bridge to Cybertron, and it causes Jetfire to crash into the ocean floor, and the Autobots and Decepticons start fighting. Big battle, and then, speak of the devil, and he shall appear. Shockwave appears through the portal, right in the middle of a fight, and basically the Autobots are fucked. Ratchet takes a direct hit to the chest and fucking dies. And then Optimus and Shockwave get into this, I was about to say really, really well-drawn fight, but then it cuts away to the doings of Spike and Carly. But we'll talk about them later. So, Optimus gets dogpiled by the Decepticons and starts wrestling with Shockwave. And back on Cybertron, Elita 1 happens to find the opened portal and manages to drag both her and Ultra Magnus through it. Obviously.
Oh, never mind. I'll go over this when we're going over it in detail.
Yeah. She manages to save Optimus's ass at the last minute by accident by shoving Shockwave over, but unfortunately she's she's followed by a couple of the Combaticons. Fortunately, Elita 1 closes the gate and ends up bisecting Brawl, but he's still alive. He'll be around for a little while. And this fight just keeps going and going and going, and it's just so bad that Optimus and Elita have no choice but to retreat and leave both Jazz and Cliffjumper behind in a very hard decision. And we saw what Shockwave did to Ultra Magnus, so we can only assume what he'll do to Cliffjumper and Jazz.
He made him into a Bayverse transformer.
He did.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the A plot. If y'all wanna talk about that before moving on to the B plot.
All right. Well, I guess that's how we'll do it then. I think one of the things that's most interesting in this issue is that we see this sort of fraternity between Shockwave and Soundwave. Shockwave refers to Soundwave as dear brother, and they keep referring to each other as brother in the as the comic goes on, which I think is a first. For the way,
they do share the last name.
They do share a last name, exactly. but this is the first time that similarity has been translated as a brotherhood. We don't know quite how brothers work in Transformers in this version of Transformers. And it could just be a general Decepticon thing, because I think we have seen the Decepticons refer to each other as brothers before.
Yeah, if I want to take a guess, maybe in issue 7 when they were all trying to decide Starscream's fate. Can't really remember. Don't take my word on that.
Yeah, but Shockwave refers to Soundwave refers to Shockwave as dear brother. And I feel like there is something more than the generic Decepticon brotherhood between them. But that's a pretty interesting concept that's been introduced.
Yeah, especially since Soundwave was perfectly happy to let Shockwave just take command. The command that was bestowed upon himself by the other Decepticons.
Yeah.
Like it was entirely his plan to put Shockwave back in charge. We don't really know what Shockwave's relationship to Megatron is, and based on how this set of issues goes, I doubt we'll find out for a while.
Yeah.
But there's definitely a very strong relationship between Soundwave and Shockwave that we just don't know the full depth of. And obviously, characters could always come back with the nature of how things are going in this series so far. People can be rebuilt. They've already established that much. So hopefully we'll find out one day.
I mean, we see in this issue, we see Vortex get absolutely vaporized by Alita, and yet he comes back only a couple issues later. So
yeah, ventilated.
Yeah, turned into Swiss cheese.
Yeah, and Brawl gets bisected in half, but a few issues later, you see Bruticus on one of the covers. So
yeah. It's sort of a bit ambiguous how permanent death is for Transformers in this setting.
Yeah.
How durable they are.
Later on, past where either of you have stopped reading so far, they do sort of imply some things about how sparks work.
Mm-hmm.
But I won't go into too much detail on that. So I think it might be one of those things where, like, it doesn't really matter how damaged someone is as long as they still have the spark.
That's my presumption. That's the general rule for as long as Transformers have had like rules about how dead is dead. Usually the spark is the main factor.
But there are some quote unquote character deaths, because I'm calling it quote unquote. I'm putting it in scare quotes because as far as issue 18 goes, they have been permanent so far, but things could always change later down the line. There are certain character deaths where nothing happened to the spark. We'll see one of those later on this episode. So it is still a bit ambiguous. But yeah, it's a very, very action-packed issue. And honestly, as far as the rest of this set of issues goes, the action doesn't really stop outside of like flashbacks and stuff.
Yeah.
We do get a little bit of a reprieve next issue, but it's pretty full throttle from here on until the end.
Another one thing I want to mention about the A plot, I think it's kind of funny how Optimus Prime was talking to Jetfire about how like they were going to take good care of them. They just needed him to get them around. The very next issue, he gets blown out.
He gets blood. He doesn't even die or anything. Like as far like he just gets his wing clipped and he crashes. And they just leave him
And
there.
they don't even talk about it.
Yeah, like even up to issue 18, I don't think they've mentioned him. I could be forgetting stuff in between, but I don't remember them talking about him. I don't even think the Decepticons noticed he was there. They haven't done anything with him either.
Honestly, I wouldn't blame Skyfire at this point for pulling a fire in the sky.
He did it on purpose.
Mm-hmm. He just like, oh, my memories. Oh, who are these Decepticon guys? These guys seem totally cool and not likely to use me as an airplane and blow me up.
Char, is that you? My good friend?
My good friend and totally not sociopathic chum. Done any astronomy lately?
Yeah. Oh. Runestone, what about you?
The main thing I'll say is regarding Shockwave. As we'll soon find out, he is one of the most vile Decepticons to ever grace this comic. And unlike Starscream, he actually has the skill and intelligence to back it up.
I do have some thoughts on that, but I'll save it for one of the future issues. Actually, never mind. I just remembered something.
And not only that, but normally Shockwave is a character defined by logic and pragmatism. He just does what he thinks is for the good of Cybertron. But here we see he has quite the cruel streak to him, as he appears to taunt Optimus quite a bit throughout their conflict.
Yeah. Actually, I think I will go on to that thought that I had. Shockwave and Starscream seem like mirror images of each other to me, where Starscream is extremely sadistic to organic life. He's very callous and what's the word? Just very matter of fact about how he treats his robotic brethren, whereas the opposite seems to be true for Shockwave, where he's very sadistic towards his fellow Cybertronians. He'll happily play the part of Dr. Mengele, but when it comes to the organic life that he's using to feed the machine in, I think, 2 episodes' time, he's just very, oh well, it's beautiful, but bigger things matter.
I sort of disagree. When it comes to, because I know what you're talking about in terms of Shockwave's treatment of organic life, because to me it seems like he is fascinated by Earth life, and it's like the beauty of it is like makes it all the more satisfying to destroy in his eyes or eye,
Just
and
the one.
to use as fuel for Energon. At least that was my interpretation.
I don't know. I thought he was just more excited to see his plan like come to fruition than anything else. I don't know. Like I feel like he didn't really care about like what happened to the Earth so long as he got what he wanted out of it. Which is to say energy for Cybertron. Like, if it was useless to him, he would have just passed it by. But since it is useful, he'll take it and consume it. But he doesn't get any perverted pleasure out of it like he does, like he did with Ultra Magnus.
I suppose that's one way of looking at it. It really depends if we see him again in the comic.
Yeah.
If it was his idea of beauty was like how much energy was stored within the things that he destroyed, or if it was like the actual structure of it,
That is one of the pitfalls of having such an important character only show up for 4 issues. Or 5, I guess. Spoiler alert, but Everyone knew about that going in here. Char, would you like to take command on the B plot?
Right, yes. So in the B plot, Astro Train is unleashed upon the human hospital, which we find that that Spike is being treated in by the doctor, being told that it's pretty unlikely that he's ever going to walk again. Now, he is the main character in Transformers comics, so we'll see about that. But
I had a feeling that I knew where they were going with that, but then they subverted my expectations.
I'm going to presume that's an issue I haven't read yet, so I'm not.
It is. It's in like issue 17.
Yeah, I'm not going to pry.
Yeah.
But we see Astro Train. He comes and he threatens to blow up the hospital with all the patients inside if Spike is not handed over to him. And we see that Spike hands himself over on the condition that the humans inside are spared.
Well, it's not. Astro Chain specifically said he didn't want to kill anyone.
Well,
I was so.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just like he didn't want to kill anyone. That was just the orders of his mission. So like it was always, if Spike came, no one else was going to get hurt.
Yeah. Well, I'll get into it in a bit, but Astro Train is a pretty interesting insight, in my opinion, to the attitudes of the Decepticons.
Mm-hmm.
Towards weaker life and so forth.
I could definitely see him hanging out with Thundercracker later on.
Yeah. But as we see, Astro Train is transporting Spike to be seen to by Shockwave. But as he is being transported, it's interrupted by Beachcomber, who causes Astro Train to crash into the beach. And that's where the issue leaves off.
Yeah, the B plot is pretty short in this episode. It's mostly focused on the battle under the sea at the space bridge. So yeah, not a whole lot to talk about there besides Astro Train's aforementioned attitudes.
We also see RC, Wheeljack, and Carly come across a human military encampment or militia encampment, but that's sort of like a one-panel thing.
Yeah, just one page out of the whole story.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about Astro Train's attitudes towards human life and Earth life in general, which I think is quite an interesting. It's quite an interesting counterpoint to Starscream, and in that the way he sees it, destroying life, human life, and destroying Earth. It's not like something he wants to do particularly. But he isn't particularly bothered by it either.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably done stuff like that countless times before in the name of the Decepticons, so...
Yeah.
He just prefers not to.
It's a necessary evil in his eyes, but it doesn't seem to be a particularly egregious necessary evil either.
Yeah.
It's more like bulldozing over a forest rather than committing a genocide in his eyes.
Yeah.
Not that genocide is a necessary evil. I feel like I should just say that. Put that out there.
Cutting down a tree with like a bird's nest in it.
Yeah.
You feel bad for the birds in the moment, but you got to do it anyway.
Yeah. That's how that seems to be Astro Train's mindset.
Yeah. We'll end up seeing a lot of him going forward, bits and pieces here and there, but he'll stick around for a while. I think he's still kicking.
He hasn't had his reckoning with Megatron yet.
No, but I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah.
Does anyone have anything else to add about this issue before we move on to number 10?
No, I feel like I've said everything I need to.
Runestone?
Isn't this the issue where Elita 1 and Optimus are reunited?
Yes, but they don't really talk to each other until the next issue.
That's fair enough, in which case I don't have much more to say right now.
All right, moving on to issue number 10. So this issue basically opens with a big flashback as to where the hell Beachcomber came from. You know, he was kind of Deus Ex, Machina ex Machina at the end of last episode. So we see he was on the Ark when the Decepticons attacked it, and he got thrown out at the last minute and ended up on the moon, where he stayed. He was awake the entire time, it seems, for 4 million years, or millions of years ago. Which actually I think contradicts what the Energon universe has said previously about it, where they said it's only been a couple thousand years that the war's been going on. So a little disappointed. So he was on the moon awake for 4 million years, just alone. And then there's just this really good panel work on the bottom of, I think, the second page, where it just slowly zooms into his face, but each panel just keeps getting more and more compressed.
Yeah.
It sort of reminds me of that, I guess, thought experiment where, like, as you get older, time moves faster because, like, a year takes up a smaller and smaller portion of your lifespan than it did the year before.
That's what I was thinking of as well. It's like I like how they showed it almost implies that his perception of time is speeding up as he is, like, basically stuck there doing nothing, watching the movements move.
Mm-hmm. And he was stuck there until the Apollo program, and he hitched a ride on the... Oh, God, I never really looked at this panel before, but the panel of the lunar module escaping, that's not how that works.
God.
Someone didn't do their homework.
Doing their homework. They need to get me on this comic.
Yeah, I hope someone got fired for that blunder.
They need me in as an advisor.
So the lunar landing module was actually made out of two parts. The bottom part had the legs, and the top part was where they were housed. The top part splits off and goes back up into lunar orbit. The bottom part stays on the ground. In the comic here, they show the whole thing going back up, which just is not how that works.
Yeah.
Oh, that is frustrating. Anyway,
now you know how I feel all the time.
Anyway, so we see he hitches a ride back to Earth, and he explores the wilderness, and he falls in love with the wildlife and stuff, and he goes all Fern Gully on us. And he finds the Autobot Ark, and he sees his friends, and he chooses not to do anything. He walks away. He said, "This way they could sleep forever," when Spike asked him why he did what he did. And Beachcomber in the series is leaning his characterization leans heavily into pacifism, and we get to explore that with him for a couple issues here, where he just simply refuses to fight. He walks away from the war, and unfortunately for him, the war woke up anyway. So.
Yeah, his inaction, while definitely understandable to an extent, and in character for him, ultimately backfired spectacularly. As had he been around and reactivated his fellow Autobots, we might not have seen the death of Bumblebee, among many others.
They would have been able to put down Soundwave, Starscream, the other Seekers, done something with them. But Beachcomber only bought about 40 years apiece.
Yeah. All that time as well. He comes back and he makes that choice. And only 40 years later, the volcano did the volcano erupt?
No, Jetfire woke up Starscream.
Oh, of course, yes. It is it is quite funny, the timing on that.
Yeah, there's definitely something to be said here comparing him to Cliffjumper.
Yeah,
I alluded to earlier.
I was thinking about that actually. You're right. I think it plays into what Rune had mentioned about how Cliffjumper and now Beachcomber especially have just appeared to have become entirely jaded with the war.
Yeah. And we're not done exploring that sort of stuff. We still have one more instance of these sort of thought-provoking character moments to go through before this episode's done. But so what?
I'm sorry. Sorry, if I may just interject while I have this on my mind. I don't know what your guys' opinion on Beachcomber is, but it seems that reception towards him has been fairly positive.
I mean, everyone likes Beachcomber. Beachcomber's cool. He's chill. He's hip.
The thing about him, and I don't know whether it's just what I've seen, but it seemed like he went through a phase, as in Beachcomber in general. Beachcomber went through a phase of being pretty unpopular because, or maybe it's just the production behind Transformers Animated that I'm thinking of, because at one point they were not only planning on including him in that show, but they were planning on killing him off pretty brutally on two separate occasions. It's like someone on the writing staff for that show really, really did not like Beachcomber.
BJW had it out for him.
I don't know whether that has anything to do with the fact that someone attributed his personality to just being a hippie and a stoner or something like that.
Yeah.
Wasn't Beachcomber supposed to be depicted as a stoner in animated? Like they were going to lean into that stereotype.
Yeah, he looks. I've seen his design. I've seen his design, and he looks stinky, skunky. Yeah. Robot Shaggy. But as far as before you interjected, I was actually going to ask what y'all's opinions on this take of Beachcomber were, and I have to say I think they handle they really explore the moral dilemma side of it a bit better, because they have this moment on an idyllic beach to actually talk about, instead of being in the heat of the moment and all that, like Cliffjumper was. But I think they're a bit more successful at making you think about about Beachcomber. Their names are both 3 syllables and end in ER. I don't. That's why I keep getting them confused. But I don't know. Like I'm still like I don't necessarily agree with Beachcomber. I don't think pacifism is the solution to these particular circumstances, especially as we get further along in these course of events. But Beachcomber doesn't like he's not idle per se. He's very instead he doesn't fight, but he does save people, which is very important. That's what makes his pacifism go from oh you're just a coward to oh you're still actually really like doing something here.
And also, I think
very Hacksaw Ridge.
I think the thing about Beachcomber's actions in this version, in this comic, are they're more understandable because there wasn't any sort of immediate danger that that Cliffjumper was causing in not bringing the Autobots back to life. Reasonably, he did not know that that Skyfire was going to come and reactivate them himself.
Yeah.
And the way he saw it, he saw it as leaving them to rest. He was tired. He was tired of the war, and he knew that if he brought them back, the war would resume.
And as far as he knew, the war was already lost on Cybertron. And
yeah. And this was to him, it was almost a mercy. You can imagine it being.
Yeah. It's just the dramatic irony of knowing that his decision didn't really pan out.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we know what happened, what that did, but he didn't. He couldn't have.
Mm. So yeah, I feel like him washing his hands of it is a bit more understandable because he never puts himself in a situation where he would be expected to engage, should we say?
I agree.
Rune, have you got any thoughts about Beachcomber's character?
Well, I think, like you said, this falls under deconstruction territory, where the comic neither entirely agrees or disagrees with his pacifism.
Yeah,
I like that they leave it as an exercise for the reader instead of telling us who to agree with.
That's something I think the comic is really good at.
Yeah.
I agree. So far, they've been quite good at making characters not necessarily agreeable, but understandable. And I think that's quite an important line to ride when you're writing a character.
And the comic also doesn't make you feel good or bad about agreeing or disagreeing with characters.
Yeah.
Anyway, can someone please take the reins on the synopsis? My throat is very dry.
All right. So the scene changes over, and we find Soundwave, working on repairing his Ravage. And we see Shockwave sees this as a waste of resources. His callousness almost mirrors Starscream. As we see Shockwave holding Ravage up by one leg and bring him to what looks like a furnace of some kind, or some sort of...
It looks like crusher wheels to me.
It looks like those crusher wheels you see on YouTube that people put random things into.
Yeah, those.
Yeah.
This is a recurring theme or a recurring motif of these Decepticon leaders mistreating their men. specifically Soundwave's pets.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't seen Megatron. I don't know how prevalent he has been yet, but I do wonder how Megatron is going to interact with Soundwave, and it's going to show why Soundwave is so loyal to Megatron.
Dude, I am so excited for the next episode.
Then again, we see Megatron has a rapport with Laserbeak, so
okay. If I can get both of your agreement, can I do some minor spoilers for issue number 18?
teeny weeny.
Yeah.
So you've probably seen covers with Megatron on them.
Yeah.
Megatron. Okay, so spoilers for issue number 18. Megatron is back by issue number 18. He makes his big entrance, and the first thing that he does is talk to Soundwave, and mention. I think he mentions that Laserbeak was a great help to him, and he immediately takes Ravage and fixes him and calls him a good boy. And that's the only events in the issue that I want to talk about. But there's this rule of three thing where first we saw Starscream mistreat Soundwave's pets, and the Decepticons turned on him. Not because of that, but it's just part of his personality that ultimately led to his downfall. That's what I'm trying to get at. Second, here we see Shockwave mistreat Soundwave's pets, and we'll see eventually that he loses. Megatron treats Soundwave's pets as if they're his own, and that immediately shows this great contrast between him and the lesser Decepticons that show why people will ride with Megatron to the death. Like he's earned their loyalty for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah, if this is going in the direction I think it's going, then I think this comic is going to do quite well in showing Megatron as the charismatic leader.
Mm-hmm. Megatron has not been in the comic for it's like single panels to just one full page at the end of issue number 18, but every single time that we see him, he steals the show. Honestly.
Yeah. I think they're doing really well at building up an aura for lack of a better term around Megatron.
Yeah, Megatron's aura farming.
He really is. But anyway,
that scene, by the way, with Shockwave, Soundwave, and Ravage, it actually shows how much fear Shockwave strikes in people, because in contrast to Starscream and Optimus Prime, when they attack Ravage, Soundwave is more than willing to confront or stand up to them. But when Shockwave almost sacrifices Ravage, Soundwave seems scared to do anything almost.
That's a good point. That is a good point.
That is a very good point. And it sort of plays into something I was thinking about, is that we kind of get more of an insight into Shockwave and Soundwave's relationship in this issue. As we see, Shockwave has at least some kind of respect for Soundwave, because he, I think they mention it in this issue, Shockwave describes Soundwave on Cybertron's bronze throne, presumably ruling alongside him, and has some sort of appreciation for him, but at the same time, he's constantly berating him, or at least that's what it seems like. Yes, they do. They've mentioned the bronze throne. Shockwave is constantly berating Soundwave for acting inefficiently, and for being illogical. And Soundwave doesn't really respond much. He sort of just takes it.
Yeah. It just really says something about the strength, the comparative strength between the two of them. Shockwave pretends that Soundwave is his equal, but Soundwave knows that he can't stand up to Shockwave. Or maybe not can't, but at this moment at least can't afford to.
Yeah. But anyway, before Shockwave has the opportunity to throw Ravage into the recycler, he is distracted. He's distracted, and he goes into the water vortex, and he is astounded by the majesty of these blue whales and these manta rays. Quite a lot of blue whales, actually. We see maybe those things in the background are like sharks or some other kind of aquatic creature, but we see 3 blue whales together, and Shockwave is astonished by the beauty of it, or at least that's what it appears to be, and he thinks it's wonderful that they're going to be fuel for his cause. And then we see that we see Shockwave. We see Scrapper has the feeder ready, which is this large grinding maw.
Very Unicron-esque, Armada Unicron.
It does. It has the yes, you're right. I wonder if that's going to play into anything later. Actually,
I think maybe they just use the toy as a reference.
Probably, but we can theorize. And it sucks all of the sea life into it, and we see Shockwave reveling in this as he says, "Yes, yes, yes!
Cybertron shall be powered by Chum."
And we're going to cut away to another scene. So, does anyone have any notes? Anything they want to say? I really like this panel that they have with Shockwave, with the red coloring.
Yeah.
Which
the scene that it cuts to is kind of interspersed with stuff going at the Autobot base, so it's probably best to just stick with the Decepticons for now.
All right, we'll stick with Decepticons. So we see after the scene with the mall, I don't remember what the contraption was called, which is probably quite bad because I literally just read it out. But regardless, we see
Chum Master,
the Chum Bucket. We see Onslaught and Brawl together. I don't know if Brawl is conscious at this point in time. It doesn't seem like it because he's not saying anything.
But I think you may have skipped a page too far.
Oh yes, you're right. Sorry. So we return to the Decepticon base, and we see that Cliffjumper and Jazz are locked up. They are shackled against the wall, and Shockwave comes in, and he begins to torture them. And Starscream and Thundercracker and Soundwave are not particularly pleased with the scene, so they take themselves out of the base. As Soundwave says, it's best not to dwell on such things.
Yeah, one thing of note is that Shockwave is taunting Cliffjumper and Jazz with the fact that Optimus pretty much abandoned them in the last issue to their fate.
Yeah.
We're gonna see him struggle with that a bit, but we'll wait until we cover the B plot.
And we I mean, we saw that in the previous issue, just the expression on his face, just with his eyes. You could
Yeah.
tell that it was a difficult decision for him. But as we move on, we see once again Brawl and Onslaught talking about how he's going to be repaired, and Soundwave is talking about Shockwave's tactics, but basically seeing him as someone they have to work with because he is in control of Cybertron. And the arc is basically right now Skywarp is a lost cause because the arc is currently controlled by the Autobots, and this is upsetting Thundercracker. It's upsetting upsetting Thundercracker. God damn it. What dual seekers look alike to you? Yeah, Soundwave reminds Thundercracker that as a Decepticon soldier, his life belongs to him.
Yeah. I think this might be the best place. I think this might be the best place to go back to the Autobot subplot.
Right.
We find Wheeljack working on a big doohickey that will help regenerate their bodies and stuff, rebuild their troops. And Elita 1 arrives, and with Ultra Magnus in tow, they finally get back, and everyone's RC is extremely upset at the state that he's in. Wheeljack doesn't know that Ratchet is dead, and Optimus has to break the news, and it hits him really, really hard. And then we get a bit of a one-on-one conversation between Optimus and Elita 1 that Runestone, I think you might have wanted to say some thoughts about.
Well, I mean, not particularly, but this is another case where it diverges from the cartoon because, unlike in that piece of media, it's not a happy reunion.
No, it's
because
not.
Elita 1 is pretty much bitter towards Optimus for supposedly abandoning, not like she claims for abandoning Cybertron, but I think deep down it's more about abandoning her.
Women, am I right? Yeah, this was a very tough conversation to read, or maybe it's the next issue. I'm not sure, but Elita just kind of goes off on him. She's very much hurt by his absence, and she's letting him know it. Some of it's deserved. Some of it, I think, isn't really. I mean, he was basically dead for a while, legally dead. So, but they notice that the space bridge is once again operational off in the distance, and we finally cut back to the Decepticon base where Shockwave activates it. They got all of their chum energy in store. They've churned the chum, and the chum opens up a portal to space, and we get, for the third time in Transformers history, Cybertron in Earth's atmosphere Earth's orbit. Yeah.
Well, welcome back. Welcome back, Ultimate Doom, Rebirth, Dark of the Moon, The Last Night.
Yeah, and I have to say, when I first opened this issue and read it for the first time, my first thought was, come on, seriously? We're doing this now? It's only issue number 10.
Yeah,
I was thinking that.
I thought the same thing. Sorry, I was just saying I thought the same thing. They're playing that card way too early.
Yeah, like I don't know. Maybe they wanted to do it because they didn't know if they'd get more issues, but I don't know. It just felt it. This series, the one of the faults of this series that I think is that they do so much too soon. Um, every issue from here on out just feels a little too much go 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 go, and not enough. Sitting with characters and developing them. You know, we don't really get from here until the most recent issues, we don't really get stuff like Beachcomber's backstory or the issue number 2 conversation with the deer that Optimus steps on. I wish there was more of that. It's just mostly action from here on out. Maybe a reread will make me rethink what I'm saying, but the 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 biggest issue I have with this series is just it goes too fast. It goes too fast. It needs to slow down.
I would agree. It does seem like
and this right here was the moment that really solidified that opinion for me.
It almost reads like they don't know how many more issues they're going to have.
Yeah.
I don't know how quickly early stage IDW went through. I'll be honest, I haven't read. Was it Infiltration?
I haven't read just about anything from IDW.
But like, I do wonder about the pace that they went at, since it all seems very fast.
Yeah, and the thing that gets me is that arc number 3, issues 13 to 18, is a lot smaller in scale than this one. Like, I feel like they just went too big for this one, and they should have, reversed the order, But this is important. This is a bit important for the wider universe, I guess.
I do wonder if it's something that's going to be addressed in later issues, if they're going to talk about the wider impact of Cybertron being teleported to Earth's orbit, even if just temporarily. What were the implications of that?
Astro says, I think the reason it's going as quickly as it is because Derek Johnson is leaving. That's his name, right? Daniel Johnson, sorry, is leaving after issue number 24, and he wants to do as much as he reasonably can. I could have sworn he said somewhere that his contract was renewed. Maybe it was just renewed for issues 13 to 24. Maybe that's what he said. I don't know. But I just I want what I want, and I want it to slow down. I want more character development first before we go on to more action.
Does feel like it needs to pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. But yeah, I think that's a good wrap up on issue number 10. Would you like to move on to issue number 11?
Yep, should be down.
All right. Can you open this one as well?
Right. So we open to Beachcomber riding his jet-powered surfboard into the torrent of a vortex as Cybertron is being space bridged to Earth. I'm
going AFK for just a minute, so
all right.
Just a minute.
And as that is happening, we transition to RC speaking to Ultra Magnus, and she's talking about how they first met and the state she was in. And Elita 1 comes in. She comes in and she describes how RC abandoned their cause, which RC responds by punching her in the jaw. Which personally, I think that's pretty reasonable, quite frankly. You know, she's grieving, and she just comes in and is like, "Oh yeah, you abandoned us." Out of the gate. Not very reasonable on Elita 1's part. And then she walks off after being punched in the jaw. Human lady, name bad, remember, inquires to what happened to Magnus. And RC describes how he was tortured for hundreds of years. And now that Cliffjumper has been captured by Shockwave along with Jazz, they are going to be tortured in the same way. To which Carly, there we go, is dismayed. We see her gasping, clutching over her mouth as she gasps. And Optimus Prime is talking to Wheeljack, describing how they are going to use pretty much all of their remaining energon to repair Ultra Magnus, who is in the process of being repaired. They're almost ready to put all of his outer shell back on. And he says
now he looks like a Bionicle instead of a Bayformer.
Yes. And he says that he wants to fight. We shall see how much he follows up on that later on.
Well.
Anyway, go ahead.
I have to say about this scene, because it's about to cut to the Decepticons after this, but it felt really good for when RC socked Elita 1 in the mouth for being a bitch. Yeah.
I was with RC there. That was uncalled for.
Like I think it was on purpose. They purposefully wrote Elita so that the audience would hate her or like be mad at her.
I wouldn't say hate her, but I can see why she was saying it as a character, and it is in character for her to say it. But at the same time, I'm with RC I'm with RC here. I can sympathize with her more so. But yeah.
I guess I can sort of pick up from here, going back to the whole Carly and Cliffjumper debacle. So one of the themes, I guess, that crops up here and there is the notion of not letting emotions such as anger and vengefulness consume you. It's something RC brings up in her time bonding with Carly throughout the comic. However, this issue arguably provides yet another deconstruction of sorts, that being the struggle of holding yourself to this philosophy when caught in a traumatic experience like war that has clearly taken its toll on you in many ways. The countless killings, the destruction of your home planet, the loss of loved ones, conflicts within your own faction. And that's not even scratching the surface. This is illustrated at one point later in the comic when RC, gearing up for battle, is still scarred from learning of the Khan's torture of Magnus, stating, "They're animals. They don't deserve to exist." something that even takes Carly aback. As understandable as RC's words may be, it does admittedly go against her previous advice. Alita 1 encouraging this behavior isn't exactly helping matters either. Despite that, this doesn't mean that said advice on anger and vengeance should be ignored either. Like, I know some will dismiss it as cliche, done to death, etc. And honestly, it's attitudes like that that's kind of why it's cliche, done to death, etc. Because given the state of the world, it is something we need to be reminded of constantly. And just so you know, and just so you know where I'm coming from, this isn't anti-anger or anti-revenge rhetoric on my part. All right, we've all been there. We've all had these feelings from time to time. We're human.
Kumbaya,
It's what we
my
do.
lord. Kumbaya.
But how we manage and or act on these emotions is just as, if not more important, because if handled poorly, it can lead to some very, very dark places, as Transformers 1 can testify.
Oh, I
I'm,
love that movie.
I'm not saying Carly and D16 are exactly alike, but at least one comparison that can be made is the damage their quests for revenge do to the bonds with those close to them. With TF1, D16's initial reaction upon learning his entire life was a lie, thanks to Sentinel Prime's treachery, was more than valid, not even a question. But his subsequent desire to kill Sentinel as a result grew to a point where he was straight up willing to let Orion Pax, his best friend, die just to fulfill that desire. And even then, Dee's rage didn't end there. Carly doesn't go as nearly off the deep end, thankfully. While her own anger is more than reasonable from an impartial viewpoint, given everything that's happened to her thus far, at the same time, between not sharing Cliff's perspective, berating him the way she did in issue 8, and that stunt she pulled in almost killing Skywarp, Lord knows how far she might have fallen had RC not intervened. Not only that, but her harsh words with Cliff. That was their last interaction before Cliff was captured and tortured by Shockwave. It's a cautionary reminder to try and not lash out at those we care for, because those moments with them could end up being our last.
I do think it's worth mentioning that this comic seems to put, I don't know if it's intentional or not, seems to put some emphasis on how it's important to have people around you to keep you grounded. Like, RC was there for Carly to keep her grounded when Carly was foaming at the mouth to go after Starscream. I don't know if she. Yeah, of course they don't know that Starscream is incapacitated right now. And Carly's here for RC now that she's kind of wallowing in it a little on her own. So it's nice. It's I just like the whole no man is an island thing that they have going on.
Yeah, it is quite good. And I am noticing that sort of theme now that you've brought it up.
And when you think about it, that's sort of the kind of thing you find in familial relationships. Like I think it's strengthening their bond, not just as apprentice, but as a clan.
Yeah. That is good. That is a good point as well.
Trauma bonding.
Shall we cut away to the Decepticons now?
Might as well, yeah.
All right. So we cut to the Nemesis, And Soundwave is once again pleading with Shockwave
Save my puppy, my kitty.
To join Shockwave back on Cybertron to repair his Ravage. It's interesting also that they mentioned his Ravage, not Ravage, implying that there are other Ravages, and that's like the name of a species or a particular item.
Well, no, on this page, he refers, Soundwave refers to Ravage just by his name. I think the use of my Ravage is just to emphasize his feeling of possession over Ravage. You know, like it's like Ravage is special to Soundwave. He's precious to Soundwave.
Yeah, that is probably a better interpretation. But we see that that Shockwave berates him for this, tells him that he needs to be focusing at the task at hand, and perhaps mirroring this, Shockwave returns to Cybertron with the Combaticons, waiting with Brawl's legs, waiting to return his upper half. Which Shockwave then berates them for wanting to repair Brawl at this time, and that they should be watching the battlements. They should be watching the battlements because Autobots are now likely to be trying to raid them for the energy they now have.
Yeah. Shockwave seems very, very one track in his appearances in this comic. He's very prone to just being very single-minded in his focus on his objective and nothing else. He doesn't really care about anything else besides, torture. He likes that. It's his hobby.
Yeah. You got to make time. Yeah, he seems to not really care about the well-being of his soldiers at all, really. Which works for Shockwave as a character and what we've seen so far. He is lacking almost totally in empathy.
Yeah. And we see that when we pick up with them again. He's just busy torturing Jazz and Cliffjumper. He says he's trying to get information, but the information doesn't seem like terribly useful to him. I think it he says he wants to know what they've experienced on Earth, but I feel like that might just be pretense. I think he just wants to torture them.
It seems like it. It seems like he's mostly taking pleasure in the suffering that he's causing them. But even then, he doesn't. He seems to get mad when Jazz isn't responding the way he expected him to.
Yeah. But fortunately for them, they get Optimus Prime appears right behind him just in the nick of time. He's like, "I don't think so, Decepticon." And RC and Elita 1 charge them, and they start fighting. And then we get a role reversal where now it is Cliffjumper who has the gun to his head. Except this time, Elita 1 opens fire. But so he runs away, and then the Constructicons form Devastator, and there's a big fight. And then the cavalry arrives. It's Wheeljack with Ultra Magnus back at full fighting strength with a big ass gun.
Looking like a G2 character.
Yeah. Full 2-page spread for this one piece of artwork. And then the very next page, the final page of the comic, he just runs away. He has a panic attack, and he transforms and rolls out and leaves the Autobots to...
Guys, it's a realistic depiction of a panic attack.
I mean, it's not as good as Puss in Boots, but what is?
What is?
But yeah, all of the resources that the Autobots put in, they acknowledged how spread thin they were when Ultra Magnus begged them to fix him, and he just runs away. He just runs away.
That's I don't know if this has been addressed yet, and I'm presuming this is intentional. As far as the writing goes, the Ultra Magnus, I presume, is entirely aware of the situation he's put the Autobots in right now.
Yeah, I can't remember if he appears at all again so far. I genuinely can't.
But we can tell that he's absolutely been broken by Shockwave.
Yeah, I mean, Shockwave says it as much. He said, "Ha ha ha ha! I broke his mind, and now I shall break your bodies." Very, very kinky stuff here.
Yeah. Well, we know what kind of tags that Shockwave's into.
Oh no. But yeah, so yeah, since this is issue 11, there's only one more issue in the arc, so obviously this has to be the place where the Autobots are at their lowest.
Sorry, just going back for a moment. When it's RC that is confronting Shockwave, we do see her regress into a more volatile state a little bit.
Does she? Let me reread this. Yeah, she starts basically spitting in his face, holding a gun up and be like, how's this make you feel, huh? You bitch. You bitch, piece of shit.
And Optimus says, you don't want to go down this path again, implying that RC may have a certain troubled past.
I will say though, time and a place, Optimus. Time and a place.
Yeah.
This feels like the worst possible time to be telling someone that they need to chill out and pulling them away when you've got like the mass murderer Mengele alike right there. And apparently
especially when he just like effortlessly sidekicks her immediately after.
Yeah. he immediately takes advantage of it.
Like maybe Optimus could have been like, no, let me take care of this for you. You don't want to do this. But he's just stopping her from doing anything and not really taking control of the Shockwave situation. A little bit of an oversight, I guess.
He's kind of just like finger wagging.
Oh, naughty.
Naughty. Naughty.
But yeah, Cliffjumper can't catch a break right now.
No. Held as hostage, tortured, and then used as a meat shield.
Yeah. He doesn't even go free. Shockwave still has him.
Yeah.
At the end. Don't even know where Jazz went off to.
That is a good point. I presume Jazz can't still be hanging there. I presume he's just in the brawl somewhere.
Yeah, maybe he got kidnapped too. Yeah, shall we move on to the final issue of this set?
Sure.
Number 12. All right. So this is the big climax we've been waiting for. Oh, things have gone extremely pear-shaped at the bottom of the ocean, and Carly is helpless to watch it, or so we think. Devastator is attacking the Decepticons. are at their full strength, pretty much. The Combaticons are there, the Constructicons are there, and the Autobots are just taking a big pounding. But then we see Carly takes her shitbox of a van and just runs into Soundwave with it. I think probably totaling it, honestly.
Yeah.
Looks like a pretty big hit.
Yeah, that hood is crumpled.
Yeah, and fortunately, she saved Cliffjumper.
This is probably one of Carly's most reckless actions so far. She just drives straight into the brawl without a plan. It works out for her.
It works out for everyone, so I don't think anyone's going to be too mad.
No one's going to be too mad, but like from like us as the readers, I think can appreciate that this is not the action of a stable woman.
I don't think anyone's actions in this series are the actions of a stable person.
True. Though I feel like this is another example of Carly being driven primarily by her emotions rather than logical thinking. It's just it happened to work out this time.
I think maybe the difference in how the comic treats it is that up until now she was driven by her negative emotions, the need for vengeance and hurt and loss and anger. Whereas now she's being driven by positive emotions like loyalty and love.
That is you're probably correct there, honestly.
So I think what they're trying to do is like, okay, if you act with your negative emotions, it turns out bad, but if you look out for your family, it'll turn out good. You know, I think that's like what they're trying to get your brain to notice. In even if they're not, spelling it out for you.
You're probably right there. That is probably what they're going for.
Fuck. Sorry, I crushed my finger.
If I'm not mistaken, during the fight sequence, this may be the first time we see Elita One's alternate mode, which is a Cybertronian motorcycle similar to her Transformers 1 counterpart.
Yes, that is correct.
Oh yeah. Maybe okay, I was wrong. I thought we might have seen it a little earlier, but yeah, you're right.
It's also in turn very similar to the Bumblebee design for RC.
It's another one of those Skybound designs where the robot doesn't really translate to the vehicle.
Yeah.
But if I keep harping on that, we'll be here all day.
And it's mostly just a problem for RC and Elita 1.
Yeah, it is mainly RC and Elita 1.
Because it's just their Sumbo designs with brand new alt modes.
Yeah.
Though I guess Elita 1 does get off a bit better because,
because like
she didn't really have a full alt mode in the cartoon, so they could do whatever, and if you squint, it looks like she could turn into that.
Yeah, I find it funny how they've still got her like the top of her head on the vehicle. They've kept that motif from the G1 design.
Yeah.
I still think it's funny how they've got a modern Ferrari in supposedly the 1980s.
This is the modern.
Sorry,
day.
A Lamborghini. You're right.
No, that's not what I was even correcting you about. This is the modern day.
Is it? Oh,
yeah.
I keep forgetting this takes place in the modern day. Wait, does it?
Yeah, because they've mentioned like the internet and shit.
I haven't seen anyone pull out a smartphone yet, so maybe that's why I'm confused.
I think someone does in one of the G.I. Joe comics.
Well, there you go. Why do I keep thinking this is set in the 1980s?
Because it's just the Sunbow designs.
Yeah, and also I thought that Sparky served in Vietnam, but like he'd be fucking ancient by now.
Yeah, my grandpa served in Vietnam, and he was born during World War II. So if that gives you some perspective.
Yeah. All right, forget that then. Forget that criticism because that's entirely me.
Sparky probably did like Desert Storm or something.
Yeah. He got Gulf War syndrome.
Yeah. And Jimmy probably served in the War on Terror.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, there's now that Carly's here, just because she saves Cliffjumper doesn't mean that they're home clear. The Autobots are still taking a pounding. Cliffjumper gets fucking punted by Devastator, and he goes flying.
And if the van wasn't totaled before, it certainly is now.
Yeah. But luckily, Alita 1 and Optimus work together to Empire Strikes Back Devastator. And they blow up the space bridge, and now a big chunk of Cybertron. Sorry, no. They blow. Okay, never mind. It says it's still active. Sorry. So they just have to keep going through the Decepticon lines to get at the thing. But Shockwave stops him, and it's just a one-on-one between Shockwave and Optimus. But this is a very one-sided fight. Optimus quickly gets the better of him, blows up Shockwave's gun arm, so he's basically defenseless.
I really love how Shockwave tries to do take Cliffjumper as hostage again, but Optimus Prime just isn't having it.
Yeah,
you can tell that Optimus is just done. He's fucking done.
Is this all you do, Shockwave? That fucking panel kicks ass.
Yeah.
Yeah, during the fight with Shockwave, he he beats the ever-living scrap out of him, and in the process, Prime experiences a very weird vision of a baby being what do I want to say? Strangled or encompassed by vines?
Yeah.
I think it's supposed to be wires.
I think the baby is meant to be either baby Spike or Spike's brother.
Yeah, I do think it's supposed to be Spike, and what's going on here is like he's imagining Spike from Sparkplug's memories, and he's getting that paternal instinct where he's thinking about what Shockwave could do to him if he doesn't stop him. And what he does is he just pins Shockwave down and beats the ever-loving fuck out of him. And he grabs both sides of Shockwave's head and just squeezes and squeezes and squeezes until it's gone and he's fucking dead.
And in the process, Prime's eyes turn purple.
Yeah. Won't be the last time something like that happens. This is the start of a new arc, after all. So yeah, they Optimus and Alita end up saving the day. They blow up the space bridge, and we should probably sit on this moment for a bit. Just killing the death of Shockwave.
No.
Okay, so Runestone, I know you haven't seen the show, but Char, have you ever watched Kamen Rider Kuga?
No.
Well, there's this one episode, I think it's like episode 35, or something. I used the name of the episode for the name of this issue. It's called Emotion. There's this one episode where one of the monsters, they're called Garangi. One of the Garangi, he's like a porcupine man, is like terrorizing these college kids to the point where they're driven to suicide. And the climax of the episode, Kuga confronts the porcupine Garangi and he's just seeing like the images of these kids that have taken their own lives, and they're like flashing in front of his eyes, and he like wordlessly he just pummels the Garangi, basically like just beating the shit out of him, like these to the point where like the monster is bleeding, which doesn't really happen in any of the other fights. Like I think this is the only fight where like you can see the monster bleeding from getting hit so hard. And usually in the show, the fights are usually very like, oh, this is epic, or oh, this is like lighthearted, or like, oh, this is a super easy fight, this is a super cool fight, or whatever. No, there's no like music, there's no cool music, there's no like dialogue or anything. It's just like 5 solid minutes of Kuga just pummeling this creature to death for what it's done, and letting the urges take over. And this issue just reminded me a lot of that episode. It's one of the best episodes in the series. Kamen Rider Kuga is a very good show. I highly recommend everyone to watch it. If I don't know about its international standing, but I know in America it's free on YouTube and Tubi. So, this scene hit me hard. And
for me, I had a similar feeling. For me, it sort of harkens to. Have you guys been keeping up with Invincible?
No, I haven't. I'm waiting for the new series to finish before I watch it.
All right.
I mean, I've watched the first 2 seasons, but I'm just waiting for all the episodes of season 3 to come out before starting.
I think it did just finish.
Oh, did it? Cool.
Yeah. But they have the fight with Angstrom Levy, where his whole thing was that he had come to Invincible's house and had like threatened his family directly.
Yeah.
And had broken his mother's arm.
Mm-hmm.
And this was like one of the first times where Mark went like all out and just destroyed Angstrom Levy, leaving him like basically a bloody pulp.
I almost considered naming this one I Thought You Were Stronger.
Yeah. That would have been on point as well.
Yeah.
And in that show, that was, I think that was the first time Mark had intentionally killed someone. But in this, and it's a similar moment for Optimus Prime, where this is like, I suppose, him giving into what is implied to be his old persona.
I think the purple eyes imply that it's also the influence of Megatron's arm. And we know at this point that Megatron is still alive. So maybe there's some sort of, I don't know, Wi-Fi connection
Bluetooth
going on here. But like, we know that Cobra Commander had Megatron for a time. And I'm not really sure. Like, I didn't really follow it as I was reading the issues, but it's clear by now that at some point he escaped. And I think that might have been, around the time of this, like when this issue happens.
Mm.
But yeah, Alita 1 does imply that Optimus has a very violent past.
Yeah. And we see Alita encouraging this as she responds that she finally sees Optimus Prime's old self returning, to Optimus's dismay, of course.
Yeah.
So, following the death of Shockwave, Optimus tries to return back to Earth with Cliffjumper, except the portal is blown up by Alita 1, who wants him to stay, believing that Cybertron is his home and she doesn't want him abandoning the planet again. But then Optimus tries to have the harvester blown up, except Elita 1 never planted the charges to begin with because she has gotten so desperate. The war has taken its toll on her so badly that she is actually willing to use the energon that Shockwave harvested to revive it, I guess. Revive the planet, re-energize it. It's a decision she's not happy with, but she's so driven by pragmatism and desperation at this point that she's willing to do anything. But of course, Optimus isn't having it, and noticeably he scrunches his right arm, the Megatron arm, and proceeds to blow up the harvester and all the energon. A decision that leaves no one happy.
Yeah. Elita 1's stuck back on Cybertron, and she says, "You chose Earth over us."
Yeah.
And she's just, oh my god.
This is something I wanted to get into, an idea that I've noticed playing out. Is Optimus Prime he's almost using Earth as an escape, as it's been noted by other characters, I think. It seems to Optimus Prime that Earth is like his escape from Cybertron. It's his new home, and he's like, he is more willing to accept it than arguably most of the other Autobots are, as if he's eager to get away, you know?
I think if you ask him directly, he might say it's his second chance.
Exactly. But the way Elita 1 appears to see it is that Optimus is shirking his responsibilities on Cybertron. And I'll be quite honest, I sympathize a lot with Elita here, especially when you think about like destroying the energon that has been harvested by Shockwave isn't going to bring back anything to Earth, at least from what we've seen. Like all of the liquid, like that's being returned to Earth anyway, just through gravity. Blowing up the energon, all that does is, I suppose, it's a symbolic move. But you know, Elita 1 is at war, and people are starving. You know, the way she sees it, she can't afford to make that symbolic gesture. And she sees it as, and I can sympathize with it. She sees this as Optimus making a symbolic gesture in favor of Earth over Cybertron.
But you can't entirely blame Optimus for his decision either, because he's just not willing to let his planet, or as in Cybertron, be powered by the blood of an innocent world.
The chum, as it were.
Well, so I don't think it's necessarily like bringing the planet back to life. I think it's established it's not like that level of energon. It's more like enough to like feed an army for a while. But I don't know. The way it's framed, it doesn't seem like Cybertron's well-being is really in Optimus's, or even Cybertron's spiritual health, I suppose you could call it. It doesn't really come into Optimus Prime's equation, at least from what I've seen. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Optimus Prime's moral calculus seems to be mostly weighed in favor of Earth right now. I mean, he even refers to Earth as his home, which I think is a little presumptuous. Like, canonically, how long has he actually been on Earth now?
Yeah, like probably a few weeks, and he's only been like shot at and fighting Decepticons the whole time.
He walked around in the woods a little bit.
Yeah, he made a friend.
A friend with a deer.
Wait, Wait, no. No, there's a perfectly good reason why he's calling it his home.
Mm-hmm.
Because Sparky's in his head.
Oh, that work. Yeah, you're right. That actually works better.
Like
That
obviously he would call Earth his home. He's lived there for like 50 years according to his subconscious. He has a
that
whole lifetime's worth of experience.
you know what? Yeah, that actually makes a lot more sense now. If we take it as like at least partially Sparky's conscience, Sparky's like whatever's left of Sparky coming through, that actually makes a lot more sense. Good catch there.
I feel like we would have done a disservice if we didn't think of that.
Yeah, honestly.
But yeah, so now we get a really cool scene of Optimus re-entering Earth's atmosphere.
He's doing a John Halo.
Yeah, and then Beachcomber fucking saves him on a silver surfboard.
Mm-hmm.
And they ride the waves down to the ocean. And our last glimpse of this set of comics is just of a big chunk of Cybertron's crust slamming into the ocean, with Optimus wondering, "What have I done?
What have I done?"
So, Rune, you were talking about how hard it may become to keep up with this Energon universe. This carries over directly into G.I. Joe #1. So, yeah.
Well, I don't necessarily plan on checking out those comics.
Well, they plan on checking you out because they'll appear come next episode. Whenever we do this again. Just a bit, as a treat. But yeah, that covers the issues number 8 through 12. What I guess the most obvious question is, how do y'all think the series is shaping so far?
So far it's pretty good, pretty damn good. There's a lot. I think there's a lot more to learn about this version of Cybertron that I'm interested in.
In the next few issues, we do spend a bit more time on Cybertron, and we get a couple flashbacks, especially one pertaining to Starscream.
I'm also excited for Megatron's return. I know we haven't really gotten to that yet in our reading, but
I have.
Yeah, but we haven't covered it.
Yeah.
So I shouldn't be talking about it.
I mean, I already spoiled it, so.
Oh, well. Don't worry, my memory's so bad I won't remember.
Oh.
Yeah. Skybound needs to hire me as a engineering consultant as to what planes go where and what bit of the lunar lander flies off.
You're drawing the wrong plane. Do it again.
No, F-15s don't go in an aircraft carrier. They don't have tail hooks. They just fly off the end, and they'd be in the water.
Sir, now that you've joined us for the first time, what do you think? Do you think this is a series that will keep your attention?
Well, I mean, I can't really add too much that I didn't say at the beginning of this episode. Like I said, for now, I just plan on sticking with the Transformers comic series. The only one I might check out is Void Rivals, maybe.
Void Rivals is pretty cool. And I think we're going to find out a lot about Cybertron through that one, too, soon enough.
But for the time being, I'm mostly happy with this series. If I do have any criticisms with it, it does feel like I said before, they're playing some of their cards too early, and they seem a bit too quick to kill off a lot of its characters before properly utilizing them.
Yeah. But as we saw, Shockwave's spark wasn't destroyed, only his head. He could come back.
He could.
He could. Or they could do clones. Shockwave seems like the kind of guy who would clone himself.
I feel, isn't that something IDW's already done? I feel like it is. Maybe I'm thinking of something else.
Listen, just because IDW did it doesn't mean that they can't do something similar. This isn't like Simpsons did it. All
First
right?
first canon appearance of Galactic Man.
Yeah.
I like the way y'all think. Anyway, so yeah, I hope we get around to the next batch eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe by the end of the year. Who knows?
Another 12 months.
But my throat is very sore now. I think it's time for us to say our goodbyes.
Oh yeah.
So this has been another wonderful episode of the Chugcratic Seminar. I have been the headmaster of the School of Athenia, Kit Catastrophe.
I've been the Dean of Critique, Runestone.
And I have been the Dean of Fabrication, Not Char. And your homework for this week is to complete your worksheets on what planes go on aircraft carriers and what planes go on airfields.
Class dismiss.